Hi everyone, today I'm going to be talking to you about The Strange Situation by Ainsworth. If you've done research methods before, then if you've done research methods before, we would have watched the video for this already, but you might just want to pause the video and Google or YouTube Ainsworth Strange Situation and watch the full video again to remind yourself of what happens in it, but I will briefly go over it in this as well. So Mary Ainsworth, she basically decided, she was a kind of a student to Bowlby as well, who we're going to learn about later, but she was really interested in infant attachment to their parents, in particular their primary caregiver, which at the time she was studying was mostly mothers. And she designed a way of testing that attachment from mother to child to see how secure it was. So she used a controlled observation, which we know from our research methods knowledge is an observation done in a controlled environment, an environment where extraneous variables are controlled for. But it was an observation which meant as well that they were just noting down what they saw at different points. And they used very specific behavioural categories, which remember are what we're looking for, what we're looking to find, and they measured that. So it took place in a lab, and it had the original study had about 100 middle-class American infants and their mothers, but there's been several replications of it since that have had varying cultures and mixture of mothers and fathers as well. It consisted of a series of structured situations in a particular order, and they always did it in the same order each time. And we're going to briefly talk through those, although for the exam you don't need to really know the order of the topics, you just need, the order of the situations, but you do need to know what each situation was testing. So as I said, you may want to go and watch the video on this, but the method is testing 4 behavioural categories, and those are stranger anxiety, so how you react to someone who is unfamiliar to you. This is the baby, how they react, sorry, not the mum, obviously. Separation anxiety, how they cope when their caregiver leaves, so normally the mother leaves. They're not being left for a long period of time, just like in the still face experiment, they're just being left for like 30 seconds a minute, but how do they cope with it? Reunion behaviour, so how they react when they see their caregiver again after they've had that separation. And exploration behaviour, so how much exploring of their surroundings, playing with their unfamiliar toys, being in this unfamiliar environment, how do they cope with that? So we're just going to go through now the structure of what happens, and as I said, you don't have to know the specific order, but it'd be worth looking at remembering how that relates to these 4 different things. So the first thing that happens is the mum and the child go into the room together, and the mum sits down and the child's placed on the floor, and the child is allowed to explore, and the mother's just kind of encouraging them, just making sure that they're familiar, they feel comfortable with the environment. Then what happens is a stranger enters the room and talks to the mother briefly, just has a brief chat with them, so that the child knows that the stranger isn't threatening in any way, but it's clear that they're a stranger rather than someone who's familiar to them. So what is this testing? You're obviously testing here your stranger anxiety because they don't know the stranger, so how they deal with that. What happens then is that the stranger leans forward and tries to play with the infant and have a conversation with them to see how again they deal with that stranger anxiety. At this point, the mother leaves the room and the baby's on its own with the stranger, and the stranger tries to comfort the baby because they know that they're kind of familiar-ish but don't really know them that well, so they try and comfort the baby, but normally the baby is a little bit upset. And this is obviously testing the stranger anxiety, but also their separation anxiety from their mother or their primary caregiver. At this point, the mother returns. As I said, it's only about 30 seconds to a minute. They're not leaving the room for a very long period of time. And this is testing their reunion. How do they respond when they're reunited with their mother? The mother leaves the room and the infant is all on their own. So again, this is another test of separation anxiety, how they deal with being on their own, and whether also a small bit of exploration, although that wasn't the main point, just whether they dealt with it. At this point, the mum comes back into the room and the stranger also returns. At this point, the stranger returns on their own and tries to comfort them. So again, testing stranger anxiety. And then the mother re-enters the room and the stranger leaves. So again, testing reunion behaviour and also, again, whether they give them some time to explore here. So what would be worth doing here is just seeing if you can remember what happens and what is testing. So you might just want to pause the video here, get a whiteboard or something similar, a piece of paper and a pen, and see if you can remember the order and what it's testing. Most importantly is what it's testing, so even if you can't match up the order, you should be able to hopefully match up the different situations with what it's testing. So try and match up the letters with the numbers, basically. So hopefully you've got something like this, and if you've got a booklet, you might want to pause the video here and just write down the information in your booklet. So let's just do a possible exam question here. So this is question 16 in your booklet as well. Grab a highlighter and grab a pen out. You might want to pause the video just so you can either copy this down yourself or find it in your booklet. Ignore the bit about the 16 mark at the moment, just focus on this one. So he said, by observing interactions between infants and their mothers in the strange situation, Mary Ainsworth was able to identify different types of attachment. Describe possible demand characteristics in this research, and it's worth 3 marks. So remember that first of all you should have it is AO1 and AO3 because we've got demand characteristics being our AO1 and it's in this piece of research, the Ainsworth study, so we want it to be AO2 as well. Here, therefore, you want to dedicate more marks to AO2 than AO1. So you're going to get 1 mark for AO1 and then 2 marks for AO2. Pause the video and maybe have a discussion about this, write the answer down, and then I will go for the answers in a second. So hope you've got that the mother's behaviour is going to change. The mother is trying to guess what the psychologist is looking at, and so they might be attentive to their babies then when they're not taking part in the research. Make sure here that you've got a real good suggestion of them being more attentive, they look after the baby more, they try to identify the needs of the baby more, anything like that, but make sure it's really clearly related. So one of those as my suggestion is important to getting marks. The first mark is just basically for what a demand characteristic is as well. And you might have written that more AO1 like, so just like a demand characteristic is this, and in this case the mother's, which is fine. Okay, so there are 3 different types of attachment that Ainsworth spotted when studying these children. So when he researched it, when she researched the interaction between the mother and the child, when they were looking at reunion behaviour and strange anxiety, etc., all of these behave in 3 different categorical ways. One was the avoider, one was the best type, and one was the clingy type. And I just want you to maybe pause the video here and have a think or discuss with another person what you think those are discussing. Like, if I was just going off those 3 words, avoider, best, and clingy, how would you describe these children? Try, where possible, to use those key terms on the sides, so strange anxiety, separation anxiety, reunion, behaviour, and exploration and secure base. Try and use those words when we're talking about it. Okay, so hopefully you got that the avoider is the one where they're not really bothered by their mum. They avoid their mum. Okay, so when they're exploring, they're very happy to wander around the room and not have a care in the world about where their mum is. The opposite to that would be the clingy type, and that child will not explore at all. They really want to be right by their mum. They're really clingy to their mum. And that's because they don't trust that their mum won't leave them and never come back again. They have some trust issues, basically. Whereas an avoider doesn't have a secure base, so doesn't feel confident in their mum, but knows that they'll be all right with anybody, so they just don't bother with their mum. Like, no, anyone's the same. They behave the same to a stranger as they do to someone who's really close to them, like their mum. Whereas in the clingy type, they are very, very scared of strangers and won't go anywhere near them. So they have an extreme reaction. They'll cry, etc. Like really cry, try and crawl away, etc. They don't really want to be near them. Separation anxiety, an avoider could not care less if their mum left the room. So they'll just be indifferent. They carry on playing with their toys. They might notice, but they're not really bothered. Whereas the clingy type is very, very upset. Again, they'll cry, they'll lose control of their body, they can't cope because they're separated. And at reunion, these children are clingy again, but so upset at their mum. So they're clingy to their mum because they don't want their mum to ever leave again. They don't trust that they won't leave again. So they won't let go of them, but they're also very angry at their mum. So it's very hard to console them, to keep them calmed down. Whereas an avoider could not care less again at the mum walking back in the room. Like anyone could have walked in the room and it made no difference. Therefore, the best type, that type B, is a kind of moderate level of all of them, and you really want to highlight that key term moderate because that's what's most important. So they're moderately have a moderate stranger anxiety. Like they are a bit worried about strangers, but they don't not cope when a stranger walks into the room, but they also aren't entirely like not bothered by them. They have moderate separation anxiety. They are upset when their mum leaves, but when their mum comes back at reunion, they can be consoled easily and calm down and it's all okay. They do explore, but they also check back in with mum. So you often see like children like showing a toy to their mum, like, look mum, what I found, and the mum goes, oh, that's lovely, and then the child is happy to carry on, but they know that they've got the attention of mum if they needed anything, and mum's looking and watching and taking care of them, like it's all okay. So there's like a real mixture there. So, as I said, those are the 3 attachment types. If you're working in the booklet, then you need to match these up. And as I said, I would suggest using these 3 phrases on this, like making a note of those: avoid, at best, and clingy. And I would also make sure it's really clear that insecure everything is moderate. So I'd probably take a highlighter to that and like everything is about moderate separation anxiety, moderate stranger anxiety. That is the word that you want to use, so that's your key term. Okay, so again, you might just want to do this activity, which is on your mini whiteboard, sort the characteristics of each type of attachment. So to work out which one is which out of those 3, type A, B, or C. And then see if you can complete that. Hopefully your table should look something like this, and then we'll go through the answers to the questions, to that table in a second, but you might just want to pause the video here and we'll go through them. So here's the answers to them. Again, you might want to just pause the video and look over it and make sure you've got the ideas right, but I've talked through this already, so I won't talk through it again. You might just want to note, and you don't have to remember these for the exam, the percentages at the side of like how common they are. And it's interesting to note that a secure base is the most common ones they were studied in the US, and there are slightly different percentages in the UK versus US, so we're already seeing like a cultural difference here. So as I said, if you're working your booklet, you want to match the key terms on the types of attachment to the behaviour in your booklet. Then have a think about why might this be a problem with labelling babies' attachment in this way. Think about the word socially sensitive here, and why could it be helpful to label babies in this way, and what might be different, might be a different way you could study babies' attachment which avoids some of the problems. So pause the video, have a discussion, and then come back in a second. So hopefully you should have your matching task looking something like this, and as I said, you're highlighting that moderate and maybe making a note on the side about the clingy, for example. If we're talking about problems with labelling babies' attachment in this way, well, we'll talk about socially sensitive research and the idea that mothers may be upset that their child doesn't fall into like the best type, that secure type, or it might make mothers paranoid that they're going to be judged for not being in that best type because it makes it sound better than all the others, and that their baby might not be like attaching properly. Sometimes this can be helpful because it identifies children who either have attachment disorders or might be struggling with other things, for example autism, because they attach in a different way, and that's really helpful to us because then we can support children and parents from younger because we're able to identify these features. A different way we can study it is to study children and parents in their own homes or in situations like a park or a play area where we can maybe see like kind of just do a covert study basically so that we have less demanding characteristics. Have a go then at this exam question with a person next to you, possibly if you've got someone, and yeah, read through it and then we'll go over the answers in a minute. So hope you've got that. If you've got insecure resistant, you have extreme stranger anxiety. Remember, you're clingy, you can't cope with strangers, you don't want to be anywhere near them, and they have low willingness to explore the environment because again, they're clinging on to their mother, they're not going anywhere without her. So those are the 2. If we've got indifference when the mother leaves the room, we're talking about avoidant, and if we've got anything moderate is secure, and obvious joy when you're reunited with the mother is also secure. They're happy because avoidant is not going to be happy over their mother. They're just like, yeah, fine, whatever, you're here. let's have another go. So pause the video here, have another go at these questions. So hopefully you got again B and C. So if we're talking about securely attached children, they explore the Australian environment and use the caregiver as a safe base. Remember waving that toy and saying, "Look, Mum, what I found," that kind of thing as a secure base. And the infant goes to the caregiver when she returns and is easily soothed. Remember, they might be upset, but they're not going to be upset for too long. I want to have a go at 25 and 26 in your booklet, so pause the video here, have a go at those, and then I'll go over the answers in a minute. Remember to grab your highlighter and your pen, and make sure you do your A1, 2 and 3. So hopefully for this one we've got briefly explained some children show characteristics of secure attachment and some characteristics of insecure attachment. Well, you want to give 1 mark for identifying caregiver sensitivity here, so you want to talk about that. Talk about the idea that the association between mother's behaviour and infant's behaviour suggests that mother's behaviour may be important, i.e. that this was quite a hard question, but the idea that children are behaving as their mothers do, so like they feed off what their mothers say. For the gold one, sorry, about Sam and Dan are both 12 months old and they observe separately in Ainsworth's strange situation. Sam's slightly upset when his mother leaves, but Dan is very upset and cries loudly. You want to say Sam is insecure, avoidant, or secure. There are kind of two, because I think if you're talking about slightly upset is kind of moderately upset, so I'd probably say secure attachment probably makes more sense then. And Dan, therefore, if he's like very upset, cries loudly, I'd say that he's insecure resistant. For the part B, sorry, Sam and Dan's behaviour was then observed when the mother returned. Give 1 example of behaviour that the child would like to show. So it depends what you've written, but I've said if you're saying Sam displays an insecure avoidant attachment in that he has little reaction to his mother leaving, whereas Dan is displaying secure attachment with a much stronger reaction. I also suggested the opposite, so I've given the answers underneath as well. So you might just want to pause the video here and make sure you've got the correct answer depending on what you wrote. For the evaluation, there are 4 questions here. I suggest that you have a go on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper and have a go at answering these before coming back to me in a second. So pause the video now and I'll come and talk to you about them in a second. Okay, so hopefully you've got the babies assessed as secure technically on to have better outcomes. So this is talking about the long-term effects of it, and that bullying in later childhood and adult mental health problems were all associated with this insecure resistant type. So this suggests that an early attachment can affect later behaviours in life, and we're actually going to learn about that later on in the topic as well. So they're supporting research for attachment types influencing your behaviour. Most of the time that different observers agreed with each other when classifying children into that secure and insecure attachment types, because it was under controlled conditions. This suggests that there is high inter-rater reliability, so don't forget this key term. So the idea that if there are 2 raters or 2 observers, you could say as well inter-observer reliability, then that means if they agree and there's a 0.8 correlation between the 2, then that means the study has high reliability, which is really positive to see. The strange situation might not be have the same meaning in other cultures. Why do you think this is? Well, we know that some cultures, different parenting styles are valued highly than the ones in the UK. For example, in Germany, children are very much encouraged to be independent, so that you're more likely to find an insecure avoidant child who's a bit more indifferent to their parent because that's what they've been brought up with, whereas in Japan, children are carried on the mother's chest or back for the first year of their life, so you're going to find a high proportion of insecure resistance. So also, by calling it secure, it makes it sound like secure is the best type of attachment, when actually it's just different parenting styles that we're seeing, and it's no wonder that we're seeing high levels of secure attachment in the US and the UK, because that's the parenting style that is dominant in those cultures, and we might not find the same when we're in other cultures. Now, post this original study being identified, a 4th attachment type was suggested, which is insecure disorganised, and this is children who are sometimes resistant and sometimes avoidant and can't really be classified into one or the other. This suggests that Ainsworth's original idea of just having the 3 may not be right, and she needs to consider this 4th approach. So maybe the theory lacks some validity because it's not wholly explaining every child's behaviour. I'll move through this because that's not too important, but making sure that your evaluation, you've got the answers to these in your booklet is going to be really helpful to you, the bold bits and the bits that you need. So I'll just give you a moment so you can pause the video here and have the answers written down. Again. Thank you everyone, I hope that was helpful.